Well, I mean, to me, the best athletes and coaches in the world are constantly inside of, they love the grind. Yeah. They love the journey. And so the success, whatever that might have been, was awesome, but what motivates them, what gets them up in the morning is to keep going. It's the journey. It's like I shared a story on stage about Gino Ariamo. I mean, he's been to, he's won 11 national championships. Yeah. It's insane. 22 Final Fours. And then when I said, and asked him, what motivates you? And he said, it's the journey. And, I talk about that. If it's the drive to achieve, that's not sustainable because achievement has an end point at some level. But if it's the drive to get better every day, and that's the champion mindset. That's the mindset of the greats.
This is the Business of Advice podcast, where we help good advisors become great business owners.
Molly, welcome back to the Business of Advice podcast. First two-time guest, I think, now, but this is one of the things you just got off stage at our World Series event and just wanted to grab you for a few minutes. And first, thanks for being here. It was awesome. So,
well, it's an honor. Thanks for having me, Cody. It was fun.
Well, you did a wonderful job of really explaining a champion's mindset, and so many people had a great year last year. But one of the things I'd love you to talk about is just the best people, when they had a great year, how did they go about approaching that next year, right? You did an awesome job, but then how do you get in the mindset to go do it again?
Well, I mean, to me, the best athletes and coaches in the world are constantly inside of, they love the grind. Yeah. They love the journey. And so the success, whatever that might have been, was awesome, but what motivates them, what gets them up in the morning is to keep going. It's the journey. It's like I shared a story on stage about Gino Ariamo. I mean, he's been to, he's won 11 national championships. Yeah. It's insane. 22 Final Fours. And then when I said, and asked him, what motivates you? And he said, it's the journey. And, I talk about that. If it's the drive to achieve, that's not sustainable because achievement has an end point at some level. But if it's the drive to get better every day, and that's the champion mindset. That's the mindset of the greats.
You obviously represented some great coaches, worked with a lot of coaches just through the players you represented. How is a coach, so even, so many of our advisors had their best year they've ever had. How do you set that expectation for your team, right? The best may have that mindset of constantly getting better. Is there something you've seen maybe a coach do well of like how to reset the team? You go win a national championship or a World Series. How do you get the team ready for that next year after they accomplish something?
Well, I think you get them ready before they accomplish it,
okay.
Right? I think at some level you pull back and have this philosophy, this mindset of that it's about the process, it's about the journey. And that, yes, we want to celebrate our successes, and yes, we want to be excited about those moments. But what really matters is that we recognize that there's a lot more to do. And so for advisors, there's a lot more families you can support. There's a lot more people that you can advise, that you can get in front of. I mean, there's a lot of business that they don't have that they want to have. And I think when we keep that journey front and center as the mindset and the goal and the approach, then when we get there, we're just on that road to get better. We're not, that's not the end point at all. And I think at some level too, it's about being great where you are. I remember Dabo Sweeney told me when he was an assistant coach, his goal, his focus wasn't really the next play, if you will, the next role. It was, how do I crush it right where I am?
Yep.
And, the greats don't have a rear view mirror because complacency is the enemy of success. And so when you achieve and then you get complacent, which can sometimes happen, you've got to park it. I call it a 2-minute rule. Be excited, celebrate it, but go get better.
I remember, I don't think I shared this when you were on, but I got a chance to meet Scott Drew a couple years ago, and it was right after they had won their national championship at Baylor, and I asked him that. I said, like, how do you move on? Like, how do you, and he's like, well, the first thing I did is I called Dabo Sweeney and I called Nick Saban and I asked them, like, hey, what'd you do in this, So there's some of that, but he said what all of them told me is like, you've got to preach that it's a new season, right? Yeah. That different team, different situation, we've got to go do those same things and just focus back on those fundamentals of what made them great.
Yep.
How have you seen, maybe this is a question, I think people are going to have a really great year. I think a lot of our advisors are set up for that. But how do you see people go about making adjustments? Maybe if they weren't having the year they wanted to have. Is there a good halftime adjustment approach you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think it starts with vulnerability, right? Yep. It starts with having the courage to look at the people around you. It starts with having that circle of people in the first place, right? Having people around you that have nothing on their agenda except for you to be the best version of yourself. And I think we all in life need that. People that we can really lean into that will give us authentic feedback. And sometimes that's hard to find, but it's incredibly important. And then we have to have the courage to ask them the questions.
Yeah.
How am I doing? What could I do better? I always tell, if you're pitching a piece of business, when you walk out, look at the people that you work with and say, man, I kind of jammed that up, didn't I? At one point in that conversation, I could have done something. But then really listen. A lot of times we ask for feedback, but we aren't necessarily.
Move on, don't actually listen to the feedback.
We got to listen to it and then take it in and adjust and pivot. And that's what, when you think about sports, there's half times, there's timeouts.
Yep.
There's, in tennis, you change sides. In golf, you have a minute between holes. It's built in for an opportunity at some level to reset.
That's good.
And we as business people need to create those half times throughout where we can check in, adjust, pivot, and then get back out there.
That's great. One of the stories you shared on stage that I think hit home and just wanted to ask you, and maybe share it, but just the lesson behind it was the story of John Smoltz, who you represented, right? And was a all-star Hall of Fame starting pitcher,
Yeah.
and then they asked him to be a closer, and he wasn't sure he wanted to do it, but
Yeah.
just outside of his comfort zone, what he was used to. But I thought the lesson of like being able to get comfortable being uncomfortable and try new things and challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Then he became a Hall of Fame closer too.
Yeah.
There was that stretch where he was the best closer in baseball.
Exactly.
So I don't know if there's a lesson in there, but it was just a cool story.
Yeah, he's one of the only guys in the Hall of Fame as a starter and a closer.
Yeah.
To me, I think the lesson there is that it was uncomfortable. It was change. It was on a world stage in many ways. Lots of people were watching. Lots of people doubted him. It was a totally different setup physically, mentally, all of it. He'd been in this role as a starter for over a decade. So all the outside world thinking, what are you doing? You're there.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, and I know that you believe, Cody, it's not about John. It's about his teammates. It's about the community. It's about Bobby. It was about the team around him, and he wanted to contribute in the best way possible to them. So it's recognizing that we all have those moments in life where we go, oh, man, I'm nervous about this pitch or this conversation or this meeting or whatever it might be. But what we know is that if we prepare well, if we get our mindset right, we can step into those moments and come out better. And it's key.
What's cool about him, he kind of blazed a trail a little too, because you've seen some other
Yeah.
great starting pitchers who extended their career and who
Yeah.
became a good closer out of that. So final question, the theme here was a time for greatness. Is there, as you reflect back on your long history in sports and being around some of the greatest athletes, some of the greatest coaches, is there a story that sticks out to you as like an example of that?
Well, I always think about some of the best, right? Serena, LeBron, Brady. To me, a story that comes up is, Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. He wasn't supposed to be this good.
Yeah.
I know he's not having the best season right now.
He's starting to get better now, though. When it matters.
Yeah, exactly. But he was the 199th pick in the draft. Like, that's insane to be and do what he's done. And what struck me was that when Bledsoe went down and he got the nod and the tap to go be the starter, he believed he could do it. He believed that he belonged there. He didn't want to give that job back. When he stepped behind that center, he said, I'm never giving this job back. And he was prepared. He was ready. He was a team guy along the way. And his linemen wanted to protect him. His receivers wanted to catch for him. And so greatness is about preparation. It's being ready, but it's also having the mindset when we get the ball to take advantage of it and to step into that moment and believe that we can execute.
It's good, you think, he's so legendary for his preparation. People are starting to see that now, and to be able to do what he's doing still at this age, in a sport where that doesn't happen much. That's pretty cool. So, well, I appreciate you being here. It was great to have you back again, and we just wanted to take a time at these events, to get you backstage a little and share. How can people stay in contact with you, find you? Your podcast is incredible, so maybe just share how you...
Yeah, my podcast is Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. That is a great place for people to start. And then, of course, MollyFletcher.com.
Yeah, you've got so many awesome guests on there.
I'm grateful.
People, if they haven't heard our full podcast that we did together, they should go listen to that too.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, Molly, thank you for being here. So it was great.
I love it. Thanks, Cody.
Thank you.